Who wants a drink? I know I do, but I want to go to the best bar around. Hey everybody, Glenn Hausman here with a special episode of No Vacancy News today. I want to say, guys, one of the things that I really love is going out, having a great drink, cocktails with my friends. And I've seen so much creativity out there right now. One company that's doing its greatest to find the world's 50th best bars. We got with us Mark Sansom. How are you today, sir? This is pretty cool. This is a topic I think I could get behind, Mark.
Glad to hear it, Glenn. Yeah, thank you very much for having me on. Look forward to speaking to you.
Yeah, so the number one bar, according to you, in the world is the Botanist Bar, winning the Michter's Art of Hospitality Award, which is located at the Vancouver Fairmont Pacific Rim Hotel in Vancouver. Also, one of the world's greatest hotels at all. What to you defines what the best bars are, and how does this particular bar express that?
Well, just a very, very quick correction, if I may, Glenn. It's not the number one. It's not the number one bar in the world. It is just that's actually Paradiso in Barcelona, which was voted in last year. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Botanist Bar in Vancouver has just been given the Michter's Art of Hospitality Award for showing absolutely superb service. So yeah, it's a wonderful bar. And we've heard, well, I didn't previously know the team there, Glenn and Jeff and the rest of their team, but having filmed a video with them a couple of weeks ago and spoken to them on a couple of occasions, I have no doubt in affirming that it's got the best hospitality in North America as part of North America's 50 Best Bars 2023.
So how do you determine who has the best hospitality? Because one of the things that I found, Mark, particularly covering the hospitality industry over the last 25 years, is everybody is so good. About 98% of the way, it's that little tiny bit that I think really makes a significant difference. How do you see that playing out with what they're doing so well at the Botanist Bar?
No, exactly. I think you've touched on it perfectly there. Life's a game of inches, as Al Pacino would probably tell us, and it's that little sort of 1%, the sum of the marginal gains that really do make the idiosyncratic, really special hospitality experiences. But in terms of how us at 50 Best determine it, so we have in North America, we have a panel of 260 of the greatest minds in the bars world. So they're sort of split up into 50% bartenders and bar owners, 25% drinks writers and drinks educators, and the other 25% cocktail aficionados, people who sit on the other side of the bar like you and I, who are just there to have a wonderful experience. So we ask them, as part of their voting, their polling once every year, to name the one bar where they've had the single best hospitality experience. Now, what that means for me is probably what it means for you. Like I'm quite into the way I'm initially received when I go into a bar. I want people to acknowledge that I'm there and sort of sit me down, get me a menu, maybe a welcome drink pretty early on. Some people glassware.
And even if you're at the bar, at least say hello while they're dealing with other people. Because I can't stand that, Mark, when you're sitting there and you're staring there. And it reminds me of when I was in college and I'd be holding up like waving it desperately to get people's attention, you know?
I'm with you, brother. I mean, when I was at college, I didn't have a $20 bill. I was probably just waving around 5s and 10s. But yes, exactly. trying to get someone's attention. But yeah, I think there's quite a lot of service protocol being said where it's just that eye contact. All it might necessarily take is just a nod or an acknowledgement. I'll be with you in a second, sir. But yeah, our panel of experts spoke very, very highly about Botanist Bar, Jeff and Grant and the rest of the team. And from what I've seen, I haven't been fortunate enough to visit myself, being based in London in the UK. But it looks like a really wonderful place and a place where I'd like to hang out for an evening.
Vancouver is a great town, and I can totally see why they have such great hospitality there. Canadian hospitality I found to be absolutely incredible. Once you get into the country, there's not a nicer group of people. So I think they're already apt to have the art of hospitality down, and it's great to see this being reflected in such a particular way. How important are hotel bars, do you think, these days? And let me tell you, Mark, I'm in Los Angeles today. I'm going to be attending a conference this week, and I'm at the Wayfarer Hotel in downtown LA, which has got an incredible rooftop bar experience. And then in the basement, they've done that kind of speakeasy type of experience, right? So two very mainstream experiences that are happening here. So how do you see all of this reflected in what bars are doing today?
No, I think people are really fast starting to realize, and particularly hotel operators, how important that the B part of the F&B program is. Those kind of top end.
Yeah, Mark, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you're right on that very particular part. I was at a conference hosting for Remington Hotels last week, and they're no longer F&B people. They switched it to B and F people.
Seriously, interesting.
Right there.
Interesting.
Yeah, right.
That's amazing.
It's so important. Yeah, so please
continue. It really is. It really is. And the hotel operators that I speak to, I mean, I don't think it's any secret that fine dining restaurants, the margins at which they operate on are pretty thin. To operate a 50 best restaurant or a Michelin graded restaurant, to be at that level, the number of people that it takes to really present fine dining food means that there's often not a huge amount that people can make in terms of profit. However, when it comes to bars in hotels, I mean, the top bars, they will have a solid staff, a solid brigade of bartenders, but the margins can be a little bit healthier. And certainly from the world's 50 best bars, we see that there's a decent chunk of hotel bars in there. One good thing about 50 best bars is that we have a huge mix of styles of bars. We have, like you just mentioned, rooftop bars, we have dive bars, speakeasy, sort of concept bars, gastronomic bars, but the hotel bar in its purest sense, it's the kind of place where a guest just wants to feel welcome. They probably might well be on their own. They might be traveling on business, and everything that's sort of wrapped up and encapsulates that hotel bar experience is. And when a hotel bar does it well, it certainly seems to succeed. There's a bar in London which was the world's best bar in 2020 and 2021, Connaught Bar in Connaught Hotel, and the way that they have mastered. I don't know if have you been fortunate enough to go.
Haven't been fortunate enough yet, but I've heard about it, which is why I'm acknowledging it. Yeah,
I'd heartily recommend it. The way those Ago Peroni and Giorgio Bargiani and Mauro Mia, who are the three masterminds behind it, the way that they have sort of perfectly crafted that service and hospitality experience is a real lesson to everyone.
Yeah, when you're talking about crafting experience, of course, the drinks themselves are really important, right? And I'm curious to talk about that for a little while. But my main question to you is it required now for every cocktail to have a smoke effect?
I mean, it would seem like that some places you go, right, Glenn?
Right.
I tend to think, I mean, this might be controversial, but I tend to think that smoke's almost a bit, it dominates my sort of flavor nodes a little bit too much.
Yep.
But yeah, there does seem to be a lot of smoke and a lot of things being set on fire in bars at the moment.
Right. I'm just kind of teasing because I do kind of like that because it ups the presentation. It makes it more of that E word that we're all looking for, experience over there.
100%.
So I had a couple of great drinks last week. I had this Negroni that they did the smoke thing with, but they had this like little machine and it created like a bubble. And then when the bubble hit the smoke, it burst and created this thing. Right.
Yeah, that's actually what you're referring to. There is the Flavor Blaster, which the IP is owned by a guy called Simone Caporale, who he's the co-owner of Sips in Barcelona, which was number 3 in our rankings, and he's got a nice corner of the market there. He's cottoned onto the trend and he's really embraced it, and he's doing very well out of it as well.
And I'll tell you, you were talking about maybe that flavor overpowering it, but I found this Negroni that I had, it added just a little bit. And I guess with the name Flavor Blaster, it works out great. I just hope nobody gets that, confused with the goldfish crackers that are Flavor Blaster.
Absolutely. But smoke's a big thing.
But and I'll tell you, in this particular drink, it just added a very light dimension, a little bit extra depth. It didn't overpower it, which I thought was really lovely. But the reason why I bring that up, Mark, is because when it comes to creating great experiences in bar, it's not just about the hospitality. It's becoming more about the drinks themselves and the creativity behind it and the overall experience with it. What are some of the trends that you're seeing right now that your 50 best bars are really finding are working to create that atmosphere of
For sure. I think you've hit the nail on the head with smoke being a big thing at the moment, but something we're noticing in Europe, and I think is coming into the States and Canada and Mexico as well, is really trying to incorporate those principles of molecular gastronomy and sort of modernist cooking in with cocktails. There's a huge sort of movement at the moment for really investing and working hard to make those garnishes that go with cocktails as good as the liquid themselves. We're seeing ex-Michelin chefs, ex-50 best chefs coming into the kitchen to taste a drink and then creating just a small garnish, almost like a canapé that goes with that and really sort of pairs quite nicely with the flavor profile. The world's best bar at the moment, I mentioned it earlier, Paradiso in Barcelona have recruited an amazing chef, and he's got his own lab. He's got his own kitchen attached to the bar, and he will spend days, weeks crafting those small little garnishes. So I think gastronomy and sort of mixology is huge over the next few years. I mean, look, you might be paying $20, $25, $30 for a cocktail, and you kind of want the experience to be as sort of rounded as possible. So I think those accoutrements to the drinks are really going to be a big thing.
It better be, because like about 5-6 years ago, when I was in Las Vegas, I've been to Las Vegas well over 100 times. Some of the center bars in the casino started charging $20, $25 for a drink, but that's for a vodka soda. And for for the bartender to just go boom here. There's no excitement behind it. There's no theatrics behind it. There's nothing that makes me feel good about paying that kind of price for a drink. And in those circumstances, all it does is make me want to go get a bottle at, the local convenience store or something like that and walk around the casino floor with my own drink. So I suppose, Mark, that as cocktails get more expensive, you need to have more of that around it in order to engage people.
100%, Glenn. I'm actually flabbergasted by bars when I go to Vegas. I was there last June, and I've probably been not quite as many times as you, but I've ended up there for.
Well, to be fair, you've got an ocean and a continent to go through to get there.
I mean, I still like to have a dabble whenever there's a bachelor party mentioned that there's going to be taking place in Las Vegas. I find it hard to say no, but it's always shocked me that the drink scene in Vegas isn't as elevated as its food, right? I mean, you've got some of the best chefs in the world who have got outposts in Vegas, and they really invest heavily in the produce that they get in. Jose Andres has got a restaurant there, tapas restaurant, and he it's not very great in terms of the food miles, but he flies the bread that he serves in from Barcelona on a weekly basis. He gets his tomatoes from Italy. So that level of sophistication is really seen in the gastronomic scene. But the bars in Vegas, exactly right. Like, it's just a vodka soda being dumped on your table for $20. So, and I think the consumers are becoming more savvy, particularly post-pandemic, where they're more happier to spend an evening in a bar where they know they're going to be fed well. They know that each drink comes with its own experience. It's not just a series of shots or a series of vodka sodas. They want to get something fresh, something original, and something new with every serve.
So what you're really talking about, Mark, is the difference between a hotel bar and creating a destination for the people within the community.
Yeah, completely. I think, as you'll know from your experience, word of mouth is probably the best form of marketing with these things. And if somebody goes in and has a great time and then tells their friends about it, then you know that you're doing something right. And if you've got that local crowd, perhaps not the case in Vegas or sort of wider into Nevada, but that's a little different. But any of the big cities in the States, Canada, Mexico, if you don't really nail that local crowd, even in hotel bars are still patronized by the locals. I cite the Connaught as an example because it's not too far from me and I go on the regular. But without the locals, that bar, I mean, it would survive, but it wouldn't have that kind of local London feel to it, something which, when you've got people, I don't know, the clothes that they wear, the fragrances, the aftershave, that gives it that sort of London feel.
Yeah, for sure. What is that fragrance? Fish and chips, maybe, or something like that.
Yeah, I think fish and chips.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean maybe it's curry. I don't.
Yeah, well, I think curry is the most popular dish in the UK. Yeah, I mean, where are you from, Ben?
I live in New York, out on Long Island, but I lived a lot of years on the Upper East Side and Brooklyn. So sometimes I'm a little.
It's garbage cans and stale trash where you're from.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. You mentioned Jose Andres, and a little show note to everybody. Tomorrow I'll be recording a show here in LA with the president of Jose Andres Group, Sam Bakshandapour. So look out for that release later this week. But Mark, I'm really curious to you. 50 best. That's pretty cool. You've been focused on the 50 best bars, and you're really spotlighting cities around the world, best of class bars, restaurants, all of that kind of stuff. How did the organization come to be? And then I want to talk about the hotels.
For sure, yeah. I mean, 50 Best started in 2002 with the world's 50 best restaurants. And it's a funny one, actually. It was essentially a feature in the back of a now shuttered magazine called Restaurant Magazine, where the then editor, really fascinating, actually. He got in touch with 50 of his sort of peers and colleagues across the world. Said, right, I want to create a list of the world's 50 best restaurants. So he polled them. He got their votes in anonymously, and the first list of 50 best was printed on page 143 of the back page of that magazine, and the world sort of called a light with it. And then, well, look, we celebrated 20 years last year, and we have the world's 50 best restaurants. We have an academy of nearly 1,100 people, 1,080 people voting on that. Wow. And yeah, with the way that people love a ranking, they want to know what is the best restaurant in the world, what is and even to be the 49th best restaurant in the world, as we have to remind people when they come to the ceremonies and they're announced as 50 or 49, they're like, oh, this is maybe slightly disappointing, but it's not. It really shouldn't.
There's 50 restaurants in 2 blocks of here.
There's 50 restaurants there's 50 restaurants in Caesar's Palace alone, right? If we're talking about Vegas, so it's not.
And by the way, check out the 9 Noodle Shop. That's my pick for Caesar's Palace, Las Vegas.
Noted. I'll get next time on there. But they've got.
Yeah, go on. So now you're expanding into hotels, right? Trying to figure out those 50 best hotels. That's complicated because, again, Mark, I say in a lot of places, everybody does such a great job. How are you and your team going to figure this out?
This is it, Glenn. I mean, for 50 best, we've obviously got bars and restaurants, and it just seemed natural for us to complete that circle and bring hotels into our world, into our 50 best sphere. However, hotels are very, very different in terms of the operation and the kind of people they employ, and indeed the scale of those things. So we spent about 5 years researching how best we can set up the hotel's voting lobby. So we've ended up this year. Voting opens very, very soon. The announcement of the world's 50 best hotels will take place in September. And we've got a panel of 580 experts in year one, split down into 9 regional academies with some of the greatest minds in hotels as our academy chairs selecting those panels. So they will each be asked for their 7 best hotel experiences, 1 to 7 in the last 2 years. So sort of post-pandemic for us in the West. And they will list them. We will compute those votes, and we will just give the results out in September. So it's for us, we try and keep the actual methodology as simple as possible. We don't want to overcomplicate it. We don't want to sort of set parameters that the judges need to judge by. We put a lot of work and a lot of time in making sure that we select the best possible voters in the world, and then we just ask for their best experience. We're asking them to take into account everything from that first contact point with the concierge desk or the reception desk, that journey to the room, what the room is like, obviously, what the amenities are like in the room, then what the facilities are like in the hotel, the F&B outlets. But we're not going to put any sort of minimum grading, or it has to have a swimming pool, or it has to have a spa in order to make it to our list. So when it's announced in September, we very much hope there's going to be everything from stunning little boutique hotels up in Scotland to the most sprawling ski resort in Austria to safari resorts, and then some lovely city hotels as you guys in the States do so well.
And that would be really important, because one of the things that I find is a lot of these lists stick to, that 5-star luxury category. But to be the best doesn't mean having stars. It means understanding what you are and then doing that in an amazing way that satisfies your customers. So one of the things that I've always had problems with, Mark, with the way that the 5-star, the service things go 1 to 5 stars, is you can have a 3-star hotel, which creates a 5-star experience, but you can stay at a 5-star hotel that's a 3-star experience. So thanks for breaking down those boundaries for us.
No, 100%. And I think what you find, particularly with the big hotel groups, and I know they have to have international grade levels of service, but it needs to come with authority and sort of genuine experience from those destinations. If I go to a hotel in Chicago, I want to feel that it's of its city, right? You want to know that you're feeling how the locals feel. And that's everyththing from the uniforms to the style of hospitality. You don't want people reading off a script, essentially. You want the hotel to speak to its destination, and you want the staff and everyone from the decor. You want everything to be embraced like that, in my opinion.
What is you don't have to say the name if you don't want to, because I know you don't want to probably affect the voting that's going to open, but what was the best experience that you've had in a hotel in the last couple of years, and why?
Yeah, I wouldn't like to touch on that, actually, Glenn, to be honest. But I will say I went on a honeymoon last year with my wife, obviously, to the Maldives, and we had some really.
Yeah, that'd have been a little awkward if you took a different woman.
Yeah,
on your
And I would say that the Maldivian hospitality experience, because it's so idiosyncratic, and all of the hotels are generally placed on their own on atoll, and it feels as if everything has to speak to the destination, and there's not much to do in the Maldives, right? You might have a tennis court or a gym or there's a lot of snorkeling and scuba that you can do, but they really have to knuckle down on the service, and because that's what people are going for, and they expect that true luxury. And I think I'd say that the Maldives as a genus does it probably better than anywhere else.
Yeah, I've never been to the Maldives, but obviously I've seen lots of pictures and seen a lot of award-winning hotels. It's a place I most definitely have to go, and it almost doesn't seem fair that they're, because they've got all of this natural beauty around them, so it's got to be a lot harder for to go back to the Fairmont Pacific Rim to be able to compete with them, because they don't have that amazing, area to hang out in. Not that Vancouver's not gorgeous. It's just not the Maldives, Yeah,
fair point. But I think that makes it even more important that hotels really need to speak to their locale. If you are Fairmont Pacific Rim, which I've not been to, but I've heard amazing reviews and everything from the service and way that the team try to, what actually Jeff and Grant and the team said about winning the Mictor's Art of Hospitality Award is they see their role. They know that lots of guests to their bar, it will be the first drink that they've ever had in Canada, or certainly the first drink that they've probably ever had in Vancouver. So they see a huge responsibility to speak to the Pacific Midwest and to really embrace the local indigenous ingredients and serve it with that kind of level of service that people who are lucky enough to stay in the Fairmont Pacific Rim, that they're sort of accustomed to. So I think they really do balance that perfectly.
I love that. I love the word that you use there, Mark, responsibility. That really shows me that they're highly focused on that hospitality, that effort that's behind it. But getting back to the Botanist Bar for a second, I love what they're usually incorporating some of their unique biodiversity into what they're doing. And we've always talked about local food, but not necessarily local ingredients in creating a winning cocktail program.
No, for sure. And I think,
how do you see that playing out with them?
Yeah, I mean, going back to what I was saying about probably what we saw in gastronomy roughly to 10 to 15 years ago, where there became a huge focus on local produce, right? The luxury didn't necessarily mean flying in caviar from Russia and France. It didn't mean getting your langoustine from Scotland or the Atlantic coast of the States or Canada. It became really celebrating the humble things like tomatoes and bringing those to the fore and really investing time, which I think personally is the new luxury. If you're prepared to take a tomato and invest 24 hours in into bringing it to that lovely sweet caramelized state, which we know we can experience. And I think we're going to see that with bars as well. And the way that the guys at Botanist Bar are really sort of celebrating that the idiosyncratic biodiversity of the region, and then given the opportunity to really explore that with the sort of accoutrement that you would have associated with gastronomy. So Botanist Bar have had a huge investment when they opened from the guys behind Pacific Rim, and they've got a bespoke lab, and that's got everything from a centrifuge, a dehydrator. They've got all sorts of funky kit, which we saw when Heston Blumenthal from the UK pioneered sort of molecular gastronomy and modernist cooking in the mid 90s, when he was bringing ice baths and putting liquid nitrogen into food. That hadn't been seen before, right? And now where Fairmont Pacific Rim have invested in a pure lab space for the bar. Lots of bars aren't really lucky enough to have a space devoted to them, and they've got a huge area where they can experiment, they can try new things, and really bring out those local flavors and take them to the fore.
And that sounds like why they won the Michelin Remarkable Cocktail Award.
There you go.
Too,
Precisely.
Because of all of that, right? So, to you, before we wrap up here today, what makes the perfect cocktail that's going to resonate with your customer?
Cool. Good question, Glenn. I mean, for me, it's something which just gets all of the small details right. It's having a really, really good quality ice. I think most good bars now realize that it's so important to really focus on your ice program. There's a bar in Peru called Carnival, which has an ice chef, and that ice chef prepares 14 different types of ice every night to match each cocktail that it's got on the list.
I love that.
Amazing,
yeah.
Right?
People make fun of me, but when I talk about ice, because different ice cubes have different interactions with the specific spirits and the overall cocktail. And you need to make sure that as the ice kind of melts, it has to do it in the right kind of way for the right kind of drink, right, Mark?
Exactly. You're onto it. Exactly. And I think temperature is a really, really important thing. And I think for a bartender to know, have a really good grounding in understanding classic drinks and why those pro flavor profiles play together so well and dovetail so nicely. Classic drinks like Manhattans, Negronis, Martinis, and to really understand the temperatures that they should be served at, the level of dilution, and not just going in there throwing all sorts of funky ingredients around before. Don't run before you can walk is my thing. And the great drinks to me that sort of they chime on those three principles: good glassware, right temperature, and well diluted.
Beautiful. I love it. Anything else that you want to say on the bars? How about a tip to everybody out there to elevate their bar experience a little bit?
Their home bar experience, or their
hotel or restaurant bar.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say go in there, make friends with your bartender. You guys in the States do it better than anywhere else in the world. I think there's Singapore and sort of Asia do know that it's important to befriend the bartender. But what I'd say to my friends from Europe, I would say, look, sit at the bar, learn about what it takes to go into those drinks and how much craft it really takes for a bartender to learn his or her skill. I mean, it's often one thing I'm trying to do with the world's 50 best bars is really show the consumer that how elevated the art of bartending really is. Sometimes it can be a 20-year learning program before you're even given a head bartendership. And I think people both in Europe and the States, South America, they don't really give the credence that's due to those service professionals that have spent a life tending bar. And finally, I would just love to say to your listeners, please do tune in to the announcement of the second ever North America's 50 Best Bars on the 4th of May. That'll be taking place at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. So yeah, please do tune in on 50 Best Bars TV.
Excellent.
On YouTube.
50 Best Bars TV. I like that. All right, Mark, before we wrap up, and I'll give you one more shameless plug in a second, but I'm curious about how the world's 50 Best Bars has changed since it was in the back page of a magazine, because we've gotten a lot more sophisticated as a society, right? All over the world. Food Network, all these other things, glossy magazines have really helped educate customers, and their expectations have soared. So how is that reflected in where we've gone as an industry with bars?
Hell yeah. I think probably for the way we work at 50 Best, the easiest way to sort of clarify that is when we sort of started, there was one global panel. Now we've got the world devolved into 28 different regional academies. Now, each of those academies are headed by an academy chair. And what we're really trying to do is shine a light on those smaller, lesser known cocktail scenes. So recently we've seen bars from East Africa. There's an amazing little bar called Hero Bar in Nairobi in Kenya, which is popping up on our lists. In Eastern Europe, there's bars been in Bratislava and Poland, and really trying to show how different flavor profiles can be elsewhere in the world. So I think as the bartending community grows and as sort of consumers' awareness of quality drinks grows, it's just our job at 50 Best to train that spotlight on those smaller communities, which consumers, well, I would recommend any of your listeners get out to Nairobi or into Eastern Europe to really experience what's going on there.
Excellent. And they should go to theworlds50best.com. Is that correct?
That's the one. Cheers, Clint.
Excellent. I love it. Mark, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate learning about bars and more about cocktails. Thank you, my friend.
Amazing. Thank you very much for having me on. Pleasure. Cheers.
Thank you. I want to thank all of you for joining us today. How cool is that? Now, remember, I'd love to have you subscribe. We had almost 100,000 audio downloads last month, 50,000 views on our different shows. So please join us right now on those networks. Subscribe. I sound like one of those YouTube kids right now. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. We'll see you right back here tomorrow. We're going to have a No Vacancy live episode, and I'll be broadcasting intermittently from Hoacon 23 here in downtown LA. And of course, look out for my interview coming soon with the CEO of Jose Andres Group. I'm Glenn. See you all later. Bye-bye, everyone.